Hi, welcome to another episode of Enough Said. I'm your host, Cedric Newburn, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to build relationships through networking. So, as you know, Enough Said is a podcast where I share practical advice on entrepreneurship, leadership, and relationships. And for me, networking absolutely can be a dreaded part of the job for many entrepreneurs and small business owners. Let's face it, it requires us to get over shyness and introversion and even imposter syndrome. There are so many ways that through networking we experience rejection, and it's difficult to handle and process that. However, the power of networking really is in building genuine connections with others. When it's done correctly, networking can truly be the single most impactful strategy to help you grow your business, find new career opportunities, and develop deep connections within your community. Now, in this podcast, I will share some tips and strategies for entrepreneurs and small business owners, or just people in general that are looking for ways to navigate this idea of networking. Now, you may be familiar with networking, but you do know that now with the age of social media, there are a couple of different ways. So there is the traditional method, which is in person, events, conferences, and so forth. But social media has created a whole new lane for networking. I want to talk a little bit about that. First and foremost, social media and online communities have truly expanded. They allow us to reach people from all parts of the globe. And it allows us also to expand the impact that we have through networking. You have the ability to meet people in your own backyard or people in other countries, for that matter, that share common interests, business goals, and they can all serve as great referral partners for you. Also, you just want to make sure that when you are leveraging platforms like LinkedIn and social and other social platforms, that you're doing it correctly. And trust me, there are some people that unfortunately do not do it the correct way. Let's just be honest. Have you ever noticed that there are some people that basically spam your inbox with invitations to either watch a presentation or to consider their product, or for that matter, do a website through them, or maybe they're trying to send you leads? The best way is to start off when you ask for the connection, make sure that you explain why you are connecting with them. Now, again, in total transparency, I am not a big fan of networking, but I love the impact of networking because of the deeper connections, especially in social. Now, I get a lot of requests on LinkedIn, especially, and I don't accept those connections unless I know the person. Because again, I've been spammed a lot. When you have insurance as one of your backgrounds, there are a lot of random people that are trying to sell you leads each and every day. So I make sure that if someone is connecting with me, that I know them, that I understand why they're connecting with me, and I do the same for others. So if I just met you at an event, I will say in the message, just a reminder, I met you at so-and-so event, and I thought we would connect here on LinkedIn again, so that maybe we can get together some other time. The other thing, you want to make sure that you have created an engaging online presence so that you can leverage those digital networking opportunities. There's nothing worse than going to someone's LinkedIn profile and there's no picture. So you're not even sure who they are. Or it's so out of date, it's showing a job that they had 10 years ago and you just met them and they were telling you all about this new career. And not to mention, they might have a very common name. So if you're looking to connect with them online, you're not sure if that's truly the John Smith that you met that day. So make sure that your profile is up to date and that it's also engaging, that you're sharing valuable information for people that might come to your page that are looking to find ways to connect with you. And again, if you need help with that, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to help you with the branding that you need for your online presence. Now, in-person networking is much more common. We've been doing this for years. This is where you attend an event, a conference, and it may even be an event that's specifically designed for networking. It's a great way to meet people. Uh, in person, you have more opportunities to really engage in conversation, to find out whether or not there's some deeper connections that you all have. Communication is also much more effective because, as you can imagine, an email or a post or a direct message can sometimes be, let's say, misinterpreted, very cold. But in person, you can gauge that individual's connection with you. The communication, as you know, a lot of it has to do with body language and the tone that's being used by that person. So you can really understand whether or not this is a great connection for you. So that is, for me, some of the many benefits that exist in networking in person. Now, we understand when you're working the room, as they say, this takes time. So you want to make sure that you maximize the time that you have at these events, especially when you recognize that many of these events have limited networking time available. You want to prepare and also have some follow-up strategies in place. First and foremost, make a list of the people that you want to meet, you want to connect with while you're there. Secondly, if you have a mutual connection, try to arrange with them ahead of time. Hey, I'd like to be introduced to this person, and have them set up the introduction so it's a warm introduction. Now, there's something that I know we all are guilty of. It's the small talk that takes too long. I know I've been guilty of it, and I've been stuck in some of those small talk circles that are, in many cases draining. That is really the root cause of why I don't like networking. I don't like small talk, which I've said in other podcasts. Small talk for me is a little uncomfortable. I'm dealing with imposter syndrome as well. And you feel like you get stuck in this loop with people. And so it's important that you find a way to get out of that conversation, but you got to do so politely. Whatever you do, don't make that person feel like there's someone else or other people within that room that are more important than they are. You might want to suggest that to them, hey, I know we've been talking for a while and this is a great conversation, but I'm sure there's some other people here that you probably would like to meet. And I don't want to monopolize all your time. So what if we get together, let's exchange information, maybe we can grab coffee and continue this conversation. And that way you get a chance to go and meet some of the other people and mingle as well before we have to sit down for dinner or what have you. So you see, that's a really soft way of saying, hey, I've enjoyed talking with you, but we've been talking a little bit too long. So why don't you go meet some new people, free me up to go meet some people, and they don't feel insulted that you're cutting the conversation short because you suggested that you want to continue the discussion later. Now, here's another thing. Please, whatever you do not be a business card collector. Now, that can go two ways. There are some people, and I kid you not, I've been at an event and someone has walked up to me just randomly, hey, do you have a card? And I'm like, sure. And then they're like, okay, great. Oh, they look at my card, Cedric Newburn. Oh, great. All right. All right. Night. I'm Joe. Nice to meet you. And they walk away. Sure enough, you know what they're doing. They are putting you in a database and you're going to get spammed with a bunch of emails or text messages and so forth. So quite often, I'll admit, I don't show up with a pocket full of business cards anymore. I like to use LinkedIn. It's a great way. So that way, if someone wants to connect with me, they reach out via LinkedIn, and then I can determine based on the interaction that I had with them, is this somebody I really want to connect with? Because it's important. You only want to connect with those that you really want to follow up with. Yes, it's great to show thousands of people that you're connected with on social media platforms, LinkedIn. You've got all these followers on Instagram and connections within Facebook and X or whatever your social preference is. But the truth is, you really don't want to connect with everyone. You want your database of connections to be true and authentic connections. So that way, if something comes to you as an opportunity, you have people in mind that you can refer that business out to them, or that the people that are connected with you think of you first when there's an opportunity. And now let's face it, we've all done this. I know I have. I have sat on a flight and that person beside me, that I just take my earbud out, and next thing next thing you know, I'm engaged in this deep, deep conversation. And on that 2-hour flight, I become best friends with this person. But the fact is, you do not need to become best friends with every single person seated beside you on the flight. That is the same when it comes to networking. There are going to be some that you're going to meet, and you're going to be like, great, it's so nice to meet you. And you really have no intent to connect with them later. And so you may run into them again. And who knows, after the second or third interaction with them, you might find a common thread or a reason for you to connect and go a little bit deeper in the relationship. But by all means, do not become a business card collector. So I want to wrap this up by talking about some etiquette and professionalism when it comes to networking. Now, remember, networking is all about making connections so that you can help the other person first. I'm going to say that again. Networking is about making connections so that you can help the other person first. It's not just about you and what you can gain. I can tell you from firsthand experience, the more you give, the more it comes back to you. And if you're seeking first to help others, it's amazing what doors will open up for you. So your goal is to find ways to support their business, support their ideas. It's not about you self-promoting or being overly aggressive trying to bring business to you. And I'm gonna tell you a quick story. I was attending a networking event when I worked in downtown Libertyville, Illinois. And there was this networking event that happened on Thursday mornings, and I had finished my book, and I was out speaking my book, Unconditional Forgiveness, and I was talking about that book and relationships and so forth and forgiveness, and had just given a 10-minute talk. And as I walk away, people are asking me for copies of my book and, hey, Cedric, great job. I really enjoyed your story. And then I had this one gentleman that walked up and says, my goodness, I didn't know that about you. And by the way, backstory, I had seen him there maybe 2 or 3 other times, but he was a new person to the group. I had been there since it began. And sure enough, he's like, hey, I didn't know that about you. I'd like to come by your office one day and find out a little bit more. And so we set up a time, and sure enough, he shows up in my office. He walks in my office. I kid you not, he sits down and he asked me one or two questions about my business. This is when I had the agency. He says, well, how long have you been in business? And do you like this location? Very quick, short, to the point answers. And I said, yeah, it's been great. And we love this location because it allows us to get involved in the community. And he literally says to me, speaking of community, and he reaches over into his bag and pulls out a full-blown presentation, the kind that is spiral bound and it flips over. And he goes into an entire presentation trying to sell me advertising for the magazine that he ran for the community that was a neighboring community. And he's telling me what a great fit I was for the magazine and how all of the people that would receive the magazine would become my customers. And I literally stopped him in the middle of his presentation. I said, but I thought you wanted to get to know me. And he paused. He's like, well, I mean, yes, I do. But I just really feel like this magazine is a good fit, and you'd be perfect as an advertiser, blah, blah, blah. So I let him finish his story. I'm sorry, should I say his sales pitch? And when he was done, I never did talk to him again. In fact, he did that to so many people in that group that after a while, he stopped coming because I think he finally got the hint. People were like not interested because we were all about developing a deeper relationship. And that brings me to my point. Networking is really all about relationships. It is not about transactions. So you cannot be too transactional. You want to make sure that you're listening actively as people are talking to you, because they're going to share with you opportunities, pain points that you can help them feel, ideas that you can help support for them. And the key is you want to make sure that you follow up very soon after meeting that person. Now, my personal goal is to always send an email within 12 hours. Quite often, For me, it may be an hour, 2 hours, depending on what's going on that day. But I guarantee you, if I met you at an event, it's let's say 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the evening, you're going to have an email from me first thing in the morning and definitely by lunch, because I want to make sure that that connection is still fresh in your mind. And I will put something in that email again to remind you of the conversation that we had. It is important, especially with networking, authenticity and sincerity in networking are absolutely important. And trust me when I tell you this, as I close this out, it all starts with effective communication and follow-up. Those help you to maintain and grow relationships. Now, that being said, I want to grow a deeper relationship with you. So make sure that you connect with me on social media platforms. And if this message gave you some insights or inspired you to take action, please post that in the comments. I'd love to hear how you're leveraging networking, or even share some of your networking stories, the good and the bad. If you got some horror stories, I'd love to hear about those too. But I'd love to hear what this means for you. And by all means, feel free to share this podcast with your networks. Now, this podcast and other podcasts of Enough Said are always available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, as well as iHeartRadio. So I want to thank you for tuning in to this episode of Enough Said. And remember that you are wonderfully made for the purpose that was designed just for you. Be blessed.